So after we got Miss Crane and Jalter going on raid up over in the JP version of the game, we have Yang Guofei returning as well, and this is a pretty good servant to go ahead and snag specifically right now, because Castoria is also on raid up at this very moment on JP, and Yang Guofei is one of the better single target art servants, as she's capable of just obliterating bosses very quickly. And so if you manage to get yourself a Castoria, you can then go summon for Yang, but do keep in mind that these servants are only available for 1 day, so if you miss them, you miss them. But you shouldn't be having any troubles, you know, finding out when they're going on raid up, because your boy is going to be here dropping the videos as soon as they go live. The only one that I missed was Jalter, but that's because I did make a video on Jalter like a month ago, and not a whole lot has changed with Jalter, but Yang is up on raid up right now. Let's talk about her, starting off with her hits. But before we get into those hits, if you enjoy daily FGO content, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel. And if you want bonus content, you can either click that join button to become a channel member, or come out to the streams every weekday where we stream all sorts of fun games, from Elden Ring to Yu-Gi-Oh! To, of course, the most common game being Fate Grand Order. But now, let's actually dive into the servant. Starting off with Yang's hits, she is an art servant, so you would expect her NP charge per attack to be pretty high, but it's actually fairly average at 0.51%, but she is packing incredibly strong arts cards at 4 hits apiece on 2 arts cards, meaning she can arch chain with her NP, which is very important, and it does mean that while her normal arts cards with no crits really aren't going to be refunding that much NP, as long as you're getting crits on them, you actually can get a fair bit of stars. And hey, if you summon for Miss Crane over there, who was out 2 days in front of Yang, she pairs pretty nice with providing some stars and giving Yang 100% crit star drop rate. Or if you don't have Miss Crane, you can always just pick Caskill with your 4-star ticket and use him, as he's also a good premium arts crit support type servant. So there are ways for you to generate those stars for Yang, although she could probably do it herself with her 15% star generation stat, and again, 2 very powerful quick cards with 4 hits apiece. And while it might not sound very impressive, as a foreigner, she does have a passive that gives her 2 stars every single turn. And yeah, 2 stars every turn isn't a whole lot, but it can add up with other passive skills that other servants might have. Or if you're rocking things like 20-30, say your Castoria or your Caskill is rocking a 20-30 that's not limit broken, that's going to give you 8 stars a turn, plus the 2 that Yang gives. That means your team is passively producing 10 stars a turn. And you can see how stuff like that, plus Yang getting a Brave Chain, especially with 2 of her quick cards, can really start to add up. The only thing that just definitively means that Yang sucks is that she only has a 4-hit extra attack, and if you guys don't know, the extra attack is the strongest thing in the game. You want it to be rocking 5 hits, as it is capable of genning stars, NP, and doing big boy damage, but in all reality, her extra attack is fine. You're not really going to be genning a whole lot of NP with it anyway, and 4 hits for an extra star genning card is going to be okay. With that being said, let's go ahead and start moving into some of her skills. And her first skill is pretty good. It gives her just a lot of really good things that she would want to have. Any issues you might have with Yang's hits are pretty much fixed right here. She's going to give herself 10% NP every single turn for 3 turns. That is 30% NP over the course of 3 turns. Again, kind of supplementing the fact that she's a little bit more reliant on getting crits on those arts cards. And even though she can provide those stars with her own quick cards, this is just a more guaranteed way to start genning NP, even if she's not attacking for that turn, so that's always good. She also drops 25 stars for herself, with, again, that's really good, because she needs to get crits on those arts cards to refund those fat globs of NP, so the fact that she can just drop 25 of those on demand is very strong. And then she has an insanely good utility slash survivability wombo combo, where she gives herself invincibility for a turn, and then she taunts all enemies to herself for that turn, basically meaning the enemy is going to waste a turn, because she will be completely protected and all attacks will be sent her way. So even if they did like some big NP followed by like 2 different crit attacks or something, Yang is going to just hold it down and take absolutely no damage. And ironically enough, probably gen a fair bit of her NP back as well, because when you get hit, you know, you refund NP. So it's also pretty good for her in that aspect. So her first skill is just overall very strong and a good opening to the servant. Then we look at her second NP, and this is kind of where you start getting into the bread and butter of the servant, because you'll notice that one of the ways that she's going to be buffing up her damage is that she's going to be reducing the enemy's defense by 20% for 3 turns. This is actually Yang's primary way of getting damage onto people. She primarily focuses around just massively neutering the enemy's defense and then just slamming them with the force of a nuclear bomb because they literally have no defense. So this is a way to kind of get you started on lowering said defense, but then it also gives you a really strong NP absorption ability, because not only do you absorb all enemies' NPs, but you take 20% from each of them, meaning it's a 60% battery, which is dummy insane. At bare minimum, it's a 20% battery. If you're fighting 3 people on like a challenge quest or something, it's 60%, which she's going to be good for either one. Even this just being a 20% battery is really good because it also is NP control, right? It's basically giving you a bonus effect on top of already being able to control when the enemy fires their NP. And again, it means that Yang is very, very strong in these challenge quests. And then she's even better when you're fighting those challenge quests where there's numerous enemies, because you can use Yang to kind of burst down the main boss and treat all of the other enemies that are around them as extra sources of NP. And then, God forbid, you do something like the Rat Challenge quest or something along the likes where there's over 3 enemies, where the enemy count is starting to get to like 4, 5, 6. She's going to be refunding a massive amount of her NP, potentially up to 100 to 120%, which is insane. The only unfortunate thing is that the Rat Challenge quest really wants you to have an AoE servant, so Yang's not quite as good for that, but I'm sure we'll get something in the future where there's one main boss and a lot of goons going up to 6 enemies, where Yang can then just suck up 120% NP, which is really insane. So this NP not only kickstarts the way that she wants to do damage, but it's going to age very, very well. Finally, there's her third skill, which gives her the Living Flame buff. This is an on-attack buff that reduces the enemy's defense by 10% for 3 turns when she attacks them. Basically, this is going to total to an additional 30% defense down, meaning combined with her second skill, you're going to lower the enemy's defense by 50%. This is actually really insane. A really good idea is to just pop the second skill, pop the third skill, do a Brave Chain, get that 50% defense down, and then follow up with a really strong NP, or just do it in the inverse order. Pop the third skill, do a Brave Chain, let the enemy get a tick of their NP gauge, suck that up, lower their defense by 20% more. Now they're down by 50%, and they're burned, which, as we'll talk about with her NP, is a very big deal, and then just obliterate them with your own NP. She also has this weird effect where she buffs her own defense by 20% for 3 turns. Doesn't really matter. I mean, it gives her some utility with, say, someone like Raver, Reigns, or Mash, like these support type servants that also give you defense. More so like Waver and Reigns, because those defense buffs do add up, so it'll make her a little tanky for using her with them, but it's just kind of there for the most part. But yeah, looking at her kit, you can see that this is someone that can stick around for quite a while in a boss battle and absolutely neuter an enemy. Now, if this is all that she did have, though, were these skills, she wouldn't be as nuts as she is. But when you look at her NP, that burn that we just talked about, this is one of the few times that it actually comes in handy, because she has a special damage mod against enemies that have been burned. And the reason this is really good is that it's not like, oh, it's special damage mod against divine opponents or good opponents. Nothing along those lines. This is something that she could put on anybody. You can bring Yang to any fight, and she can slap them with this burn debuff, provided that they don't have like some really high debuff resistance or debuff immunity. In those cases, you know, it's kind of tough titties because you can't really get that big, fat, juicy extra damage. But in the like 97% of the other fights in FGO, she is going to burst them down really heavily. And as you guys can see on the NP, she doesn't look very impressive. You look at her damage, you're like, oh, it's not very good. But then you look over on the other side of the aisle, you look at her damage when she starts lowering their defense and she starts getting the burn special damage mod. She's hitting really hard. I mean, even with just the burn special damage mod, she's almost at 50k, which is like rivaling MHXX pre her own special damage mod, right? I mean, MHXX is a little insane when she starts getting her stuff going, so, you know, that's a whole different beast. But still, the fact that she's rivaling her base damage, which is really good, getting close to getting to Estrella, Leashwin Assassin, surpassing common single target arts DPSs like Vlad, Galatea, Nero Bride, Faye, Lancelot, all those people, is really insane, because she's very deceptive when you look at her numbers. You look at your numbers and she's like, oh, 33,000. She's really low. It's like, no, you need to look at the burn at base because she can do that to pretty much anybody, right? And even going above that, you can also look at her absolute high end where you have the burn plus the defense down because again, unless they have debuff immunity or just insanely high debuff resistance, she's going to be able to do that very consistently and she could slap it on anyone, which is why Yang is considered to be such a good single target servant, and it's the reason she in reality is a very good single target art servant because this is someone she can literally do to like 97% of the game. And then she doesn't have the weakness of a lot of other single target servants where maybe they can do a lot of damage, but they don't really have any survivability to speak of. Yang is very consistent because of the way that she provides stars for herself, refunds NP every turn, has a battery that can range anywhere from 20 to 120%, slaps herself with invincibility, then taunts the entire enemies to her to keep your other party members alive, and can control when the enemy fires their NP. It's all just really, really nice. You actually just have the definition of a solid servant, like just a really good, solid servant with very few flaws. Again, few flaws you could point out are like, I don't know, maybe you fight a boss that has unremovable debuff immunity. I mean, that's going to be a little difficult for a lot of other strategies as well. In that case, someone like Enkidu, who's also really good, can abuse his stun. Same thing for Skahawk. I mean, it hurts other servants as well, but like we don't call them bad because it's like, well, what about these like 2 instances where Skahawk's not going to be able to stun the enemy? You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't judge them for that because that's not the norm for every boss to just come with debuff immunity for the entire fight. It's a little more on the rare side, although it is becoming a little more common for the very end bosses, but oh, that just means that Yang is really good in 95% of boss battles now instead of 97%. So yeah, she's very, very good. I still recommend you summon for Castoria over on the JP version of the game, but if you can get your grubby little mitts on Castoria, getting Yang is going to be really good because you can pretty much bring her to any boss battle you want. She's not going to have the concern of like, well, I don't want to bring Faye Lancelot to a Saber boss battle because of type disadvantage. You're not really going to have that with Yang over here, and in fact, she has the benefit of being able to take out Berserker boss battles because she's a foreigner, so she actually has type advantage against them specifically. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I think Yang is very, very good. When she first kind of came out, I was like, oh, this servant's alright, like she's really solid, but the more and more I use her, the better and better she gets, so she's definitely one of those servants I can definitely recommend to people. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more daily FGO content, sometimes a double upload if you're lucky. If you want more content, you can come out to my streams every weekday over on the Twitch, which is linked down in the description down below. You can also click that join button to become a channel member and gain access to channel member exclusive content. I think I do have the rat battle on JP for the Paul Bunyan event, that challenge quest that everybody was saying was super difficult. I think I have that pretty much coming up for channel members. It took me like 37 minutes, but I got it done on the first try, so you know, your boy is still sick nasty with the challenge quest. But yeah, click that join button. You can also support the channel for free by downloading LD Emulator down in the description down below. It is basically a way for you to play any mobile game or whatever on your computer, and I use it for my own personal JP and NA FGO devices. So I believe in the product to put my own accounts on the line. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have such a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.